The Anthropocene Reviewed. Essays on a Human-Centered Planet by John Green. Introduction. Imagine this for a moment. You're searching through a drawer for something as simple as a tube of chapstick. And then, without any warning, the world gives way. The floor beneath you begins to roll and spin. You're no longer in your room. You are suddenly a very small boat caught in a violent, churning sea. Your eyes tremble in their sockets, and the world becomes a dizzying, terrifying blur. This is exactly what happened to John Green. After finishing a month-long book tour for one of his best-selling novels, he was rushed to the hospital. For weeks, the world just spun and spun. He was eventually diagnosed with a condition called labyrinthitis, an infection of the inner ear. And as he lay in bed, unable to read, watch TV, or even play with his kids, he was left with nothing but his own thoughts. It was during these long, still days, adrift in his own mind, that he came to a realization. For years, he'd written novels, books like The Fault in Our Stars and Turtles All the Way Down, that were, in his words, written in code. He poured his own anxieties, his own questions, and his own heart into his fictional characters. But he was tired of writing in code. He wanted to speak directly. He wanted to write about his own small life and how it runs into the giant, overwhelming forces of our modern world. And that is how this remarkable book, The Anthropocene Reviewed, came to be. It's not a novel. It's a collection of essays, of reviews. But he isn't reviewing movies or restaurants. He's reviewing, well, everything. He reviews Canada Geese, the QWERTY keyboard, Diet Dr. Pepper, sunsets, and the world's largest ball of paint. Using a 5-star scale, he reviews facets of our human-centered planet, this age that scientists call the Anthropocene, where humans have reshaped the Earth and its biodiversity. And what he discovers along the way is a profound lesson in how to live. By the end of our journey today, you will have learned not just the stories behind these strange and wonderful reviews, but a new framework for seeing the world around you. You will understand the paradox of being human in the 21st century, how we can be, at once, powerful enough to change the planet, but not nearly powerful enough to save those we love from suffering. And you'll walk away with a tool to find hope, not by ignoring the darkness and the pain of life, but by paying attention, by learning to fall in love with the world, even with all its cracks and imperfections. This isn't just a book summary. This is an exploration of what it means to be alive, right here, right now. Book summary. So, where do we begin? We begin with a simple idea that became the engine for this entire book. John Green's wife, Sarah, gave him a piece of advice that changed everything. He had started writing these reviews as a detached, objective observer, much like a critic reviewing a book. But Sarah pointed out something crucial. In the Anthropocene, in this world we've all had a hand in shaping, there are no disinterested observers. There are only participants. She told him that when we write reviews, we're really writing a kind of memoir. We're telling the story of our experience. And with that insight, the project transformed. He wasn't just reviewing Diet Dr. Pepper anymore, he was writing about his abiding and deeply personal love for Diet Dr. Pepper. He was no longer an observer, he was a participant, sharing his own story. This shift in perspective unlocked the central question of the book: what does it mean to be a human right now? And John Green explores this through a theme that runs like a river through every essay: the great paradox of human power. We see this first in his review of humanity's temporal range. Now, that sounds like a very academic topic, but stick with me. The temporal range is just the length of time a species has been around. And when you look at it, modern humans are the new kids on the block. We've been here for about 250,000 years. That sounds like a long time, until you realize that alpacas have been around for 10 million years, and the tuatara, a reptile from New Zealand, has been here for 240 million years. They've been here 1,000 times longer than we have. And yet, in our short time on this planet, we have become the single most powerful force. As Green's brother Hank once explained it to him, if you're a 21st century river, or a desert, or a polar bear, your biggest problem is people. You are vulnerable to them, and reliant upon them. We are powerful enough to radically reshape the Earth's climate and biodiversity. We've even escaped our planet's atmosphere. But here's the other side of that paradox: we are not powerful enough to save those we love from suffering. We can't stop the universe from being the universe. We can't stop the people we love from getting sick. This feeling of being at once too powerful and not nearly powerful enough is the defining tension of our age. Green sees this tension everywhere, even in things as seemingly simple as air conditioning. In one essay, he reviews the invention of AC. It was created in 1902 by an engineer named Willis Carrier, not for human comfort, but to solve a problem at a printing company where humidity was warping magazine pages. Today, air conditioning has reshaped human life. It has allowed for the population boom in hot places like Phoenix, Arizona, a city that now has a professional ice hockey team. It allows for the safe storage of medicines like insulin and antibiotics, which are heat-sensitive. But this comfort comes at a cost. Cooling our indoor spaces warms the outdoors. Air conditioning accounts for about 10% of all global electricity usage, most of it powered by fossil fuels, which warms the planet, which in turn necessitates more air conditioning. It's a vicious cycle. We are powerful enough to control the temperature of our homes, but we don't seem to be powerful enough to stop warming the planet. This is the Anthropocene in a nutshell. We can solve the small, immediate problem, but we struggle with a large, systemic one. This paradox isn't just about technology, it's also about how we see the world and our place in it. Take, for example, velociraptors. When you hear the word velociraptor, what do you picture? If you're like most of us, you imagine the creature from Jurassic Park, a 6-foot-tall, scaly, terrifyingly intelligent predator from Montana. My 10-year-old brother's first curse word was uttered in a movie theater when he saw the velociraptors in that film learn to open a door. He just muttered, "Oh, shit." But as John Green reveals, almost everything we think we know about velociraptors from that movie is wrong. The real Velociraptor mongoliensis lived in what is now Mongolia, not Montana. They weren't 6 feet tall, they were about the size of a modern turkey. And they weren't scaly, they were covered in feathers. In fact, paleontologists believe if they were alive today, we'd probably just think they were very strange-looking birds. They were probably mostly scavengers, not apex predators. The creature in Jurassic Park was actually based on a different dinosaur, the Deinonychus. The writer, Michael Crichton, just thought the name Velociraptor was, in his words, more dramatic. So, our image of this creature says far more about us, our love for drama, our need for terrifying villains, than it does about the animal itself. We are powerful enough to resurrect a creature in our collective imagination and make it famous worldwide, but we do so by erasing the truth of what it actually was. Knowing the facts, Green admits, doesn't stop him from picturing the movie monster. His brain, like ours, has been shaped by the story, not the reality. This is the power we wield in the Anthropocene, the power to shape narratives, to decide what gets remembered and how. But this is also where we start to see a path forward. If our power lies in the stories we tell and the things we choose to pay attention to, then maybe the key to navigating our strange world is to get better at paying attention. This brings us to the heart of the book, the reviews of the mundane, the artificial, and the overlooked. One of John Green's mentors, the late writer Amy Krauss Rosenthal, once wrote, "For anyone trying to discern what to do with their life, pay attention to what you pay attention to." That's pretty much all the info you need. For Green, His attention had become fractured, his world loud and overwhelming. The reviews became a way to practice paying attention. And he starts with something many of us might consider trivial: Diet Dr. Pepper. He notes that what makes Dr. Pepper so interesting is that it has no natural world analog. It doesn't taste like an orange, or a root beer, or a cola. It was designed by a pharmacist in 1885 who wanted to create a drink that tasted the way his soda fountain smelled: a swirl of artificial flavors. It is, in its very conception, unnatural. And Green loves it for that. He writes, "Each time I drink Diet Dr. Pepper, I am newly astonished. Look at what humans can do. They can make ice-cold, sugary sweet, zero-calorie soda that tastes like everything and also like nothing." For him, Diet Dr. Pepper is not just a drink, it's a faint shadow of a proper vice. He used to smoke compulsively, and after quitting, he felt he needed some small, self-destructive habit to offer up to that part of his subconscious. Drinking Diet Dr. Pepper, he says, is like offering a sacrifice. It's the soda that tastes more like the Anthropocene than any other. He is paying attention to what he pays attention to, and in doing so, he finds a complex story about human ingenuity, addiction, and the strange beauty of the artificial. He gives Diet Dr. Pepper 4 stars. He brings this same focused attention to scratch and sniff stickers. He recalls having a sticker book as a child, and how the powerful, artificial scents of pizza or banana were a refuge for him. In middle school, when he was being bullied, he would go to his room, scratch the stickers, and inhale. The smell of a scratch and sniff banana didn't smell like a real banana. It smelled like the platonic ideal of a banana. It was a comfort. And then he reveals a startling fact: he still has that sticker album. And the stickers, after more than 30 years, still erupt with scent when scratched. They are made through a process called microencapsulation, where tiny droplets of scented oil are sealed in microscopic capsules that only break when you scratch them. This leads him to a profound thought. It's possible that a smell might disappear from the real world before the microencapsulated version of it does. He writes, "The last time anyone smells a banana, it might be via a scratch and sniff sticker." Suddenly, a silly childhood toy becomes a meditation on memory, time, and the strange relationship between the natural and the artificial. He gives scratch and sniff stickers 3.5 stars. This way of looking at the world continues with his review of the QWERTY keyboard. We all use it every day, but have you ever stopped to wonder why the letters are arranged that way? It's not alphabetical. The most common letters, E and T, aren't even on the home row where your fingers rest. The story, as Green tells it, is a perfect example of how innovation actually happens. It's not a single genius, like Thomas Edison, having a light bulb moment. The QWERTY keyboard was the result of a long, messy, collaborative process. It involved a Wisconsin politician, telegraph operators, stenographers, and even a passionate vegetarian who survived on raw apples. It was designed to solve mechanical problems with early typewriters, like keys jamming. And while other, supposedly more efficient keyboard layouts have been invented since, like the Dvorak keyboard, none have ever replaced QWERTY. Why? Because QWERTY, partly by accident, is just good enough. It has become the standard. For Green, the QWERTY keyboard is deeply personal. As a kid, he had terrible handwriting, but he was a fantastic typist. Typing was one of the first things he was ever good at. On the early internet, typing allowed him to connect with people without them knowing how scared or awkward he was in real life. He writes, "When I could no longer bear to be myself, I was able to become for a while a series of keys struck in quick succession." What started as a review of a keyboard becomes a powerful story about identity, insecurity, and the tools we use to find our voice in the world. He gives the QWERTY keyboard 4 stars. Through these reviews, a pattern emerges. By paying close attention to the ordinary, John Green finds the extraordinary. He finds history, community, and personal meaning in the fabric of everyday life. But life isn't all about quiet reflection on keyboards and soda. It's also about shared joy, shared struggle, and the communities that hold us together. And this is another major theme of the book, the power of us. This idea is beautifully captured in his review of the song, "You'll Never Walk Alone." Most people know this song as the anthem of Liverpool Football Club. Green, a lifelong fan, explains that the song was originally from the 1945 Rodgers and Hammerstein musical Carousel. It's sung twice in the show, once to comfort a grieving widow, and later at a graduation ceremony. The lyrics are simple, almost cliché. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. But, Green argues, the song works. It works because it speaks to two fundamental truths of being a person. 1. We must go on, and 2. None of us ever walks alone. In the 1960s, a Liverpool band called Jerry and the Pacemakers released a cover of the song, and it was almost immediately adopted by the fans of Liverpool FC. To this day, before every home game, tens of thousands of people sing it together. Green reflects that he has sung this song with other fans many times, sometimes in exultation, often in lamentation. It works as a funeral song, a graduation song, and a "we just won the championship" song. It's a song about sticking together, whether you're in the middle of a storm or walking toward a golden sky. It asserts unity in sorrow and in triumph. The song is made great by the community singing it. In March of 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, a video went viral of British paramedics singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" through a glass wall to their colleagues working in an intensive care unit. They were singing to give them courage. What a word that is, Green writes, encourage. Though our dreams be tossed and blown, still we sing ourselves and one another into courage. He gives "You'll Never Walk Alone" 4.5 stars. This theme of shared experience leading to unexpected moments of courage and joy brings us to one of the most thrilling stories in the entire book, his review of Jerzy Dudek's performance on May 25, 2005. This is a story about a soccer game, but it's really a story about hope, absurdity, and the magic of listening to your friends. Jerzy Dudek was a Polish goalkeeper who grew up in a tiny coal mining town. His mother, after visiting the mine once, made him and his brother promise they would never go down the mine. For a kid in that town, professional soccer seemed like an impossible dream. He wasn't even a particularly good goalie at first. His first coach told him, "You dive like a sack of potatoes." But he kept working. He got better. And through an unlikely series of events, he ended up as the starting goalkeeper for one of the biggest clubs in the world, Liverpool. On May 25, 2005, Liverpool was playing in the Champions League final, the biggest game in European club soccer, against the Italian giants AC Milan. And it was a disaster. At halftime, Liverpool was losing 3-0. The dream was over. In the locker room, the players were broken. One of them later said, "My dreams had turned to dust." The 40,000 Liverpool fans in the stadium began to sing "You'll Never Walk Alone," but it was, as one player recalled, in sympathy more than belief. And then, the miracle happened. In a stunning 6-minute span in the second half, Liverpool scored 3 goals. The game was tied, 3-3. It went into extra time, and then, with just moments left, Jerzy Dudek made an impossible double save, one of the greatest saves in the history of the sport. The game would be decided by a penalty shootout. Now, imagine you're Jerzy Dudek. You've practiced for this moment your entire life. You have a routine. You stand stock still in the middle of the goal until the last possible second, and then you dive. It's what you've always done. But just before the shootout begins, his teammate, a defender named Jamie Carragher, runs up to him, jumps on his back, and starts screaming in his ear. "Yerje! Yerje! Remember Bruce Grobbelaar?" Bruce Grobbelaar was the Liverpool goalkeeper who, back in the 1984 final, had done this bizarre, wobbly-legged dance on the goal line to distract the opposing penalty takers. It was absurd. It was goofy. And it had worked. So in the most important moment of his professional life, Jerzy Dudek decided to forget everything he had ever practiced. He decided to listen to his friend. He started dancing on the goal line. His legs wobbled like spaghetti. His wife, watching at home, said, "I didn't recognize my husband. I couldn't believe he danced so crazily." The Milan players were completely thrown off. One missed the goal entirely. Dudek saved two others. And Liverpool completed what came to be known as the Miracle of Istanbul. For John Green, this story is a powerful reminder. He writes, "You can't see the future coming? Not the terrors, for sure, but you also can't see the wonders that are coming, the moments of light-soaked joy that await each of us. Sometimes, when things seem hopeless, like being down 3-0 at halftime, a miracle is just around the corner. And sometimes, the best thing you can do is listen to a crazy friend who tells you to dance." He gives Jerzy Dudek's performance 5 stars. But finding meaning and hope isn't always about grand, public miracles. More often, it's about the quiet, personal struggles and the people who help us through them. And this brings us to the most vulnerable and poignant part of the book, where Green turns his reviewer's eye inward, to his own experiences with loss, grief, and mental illness. In his review of the movie Harvey, he tells a story from 2001, when he suffered what he calls a nervous breakdown. He had just gone through a painful breakup, and he was alone in the apartment they had once shared. He fell into a deep depression, a state he describes with wrenching clarity. He quotes the writer William Styron, "It is hopelessness even more than pain that crushes the soul." He couldn't eat. He was surviving on 2-liter bottles of Sprite. One evening, unable to get off the kitchen floor, he called his parents. Within 12 hours, they were there, having flown 1,500 miles to be with him. They packed up his apartment and made a plan for him to come home to Florida to get help. The last thing he had to do was quit his job at a magazine called Booklist. He tearfully told his publisher, a man named Bill Ott, that he had to leave. Bill listened, and then, after a long pause, he said, "Why don't you just go home for a few weeks and see how you feel?" He told John they'd get by without him. As John was leaving, he found a note from Bill on his desk. It read, in part, "Hope all goes well and you're back here in 2 weeks with an appetite that would put a longshoreman to shame. Now more than ever, watch Harvey." For years, Bill had been telling him to watch the 1950 film Harvey, but John had always refused, dismissing black and white movies. But now, back home, feeling like a failure, he finally watched it with his parents. The movie stars Jimmy Stewart as Elwood P. Dowd, a kind, gentle man whose best friend is a 6-foot-tall invisible white rabbit named Harvey. Elwood's family wants to have him committed to a sanitarium. He is, by any clinical definition, mentally ill. But he is also profoundly heroic in his own way. He is extraordinarily kind. In one of the movie's most famous lines, Elwood says, "Years ago my mother used to say to me, 'In this world, you must be oh so smart, or oh so pleasant.' Well, for years I was smart. I recommend pleasant." For John Green, hearing those words in that moment was a revelation. He writes, "I don't believe in epiphanies. But I'll tell you this, I have never felt quite as hopeless since watching Harvey as I did just before I watched it. The character of Elwood showed him that you could be struggling, you could be crazy, and still be human, still be valuable, and still be loved. It offered him a kind of hope that wasn't cheap or sentimental. He gives Harvey 5 stars. This search for hope in the face of despair is a recurring journey for Green. In another essay, he reviews sycamore trees, and he describes a mental game his brain sometimes plays called "What's Even the Point?" When this game begins, a blizzard of blinding, frozen white light descends upon him. The universe doesn't care that he's here. Making art is just decorating. Falling in love is just a desperate attempt to stave off loneliness. All of it is pointless. Despair, he notes, is unproductive. All it can make is more of itself. When he's in that state, he can't find a way out. But then, one day, the blizzard subsides. He's walking in a park with his children, and his son points to 2 squirrels racing up an immense American sycamore tree, with its white, peeling bark and leaves bigger than dinner plates. And he just thinks, God, that's a beautiful tree. He looks up at it, feeling the solace of its shade, and he realizes, that's the point. The beauty of the tree, the relief of its shade, the feel of his son's hand in his. That is the point. The game ends, not with a grand philosophical argument, but with a simple moment of attention and gratitude. He gives sycamore trees 5 stars. This idea of finding meaning not in some grand ultimate purpose, but in the act of living and participating, leads us to one of the book's most beautiful and emblematic essays, his review of the world's largest ball of paint. Located in Alexandria, Indiana, the ball of paint was started in 1977 by a man named Mike Carmichael and his 3-year-old son. They painted a baseball. And then they just kept painting it. Over 40 years later, the ball has more than 26,000 layers of paint and weighs 2.5 tons. Every year, thousands of strangers visit and add their own layer of paint. For Green, this ball of paint becomes a powerful metaphor for art, and for life itself. We are often taught to think of history and art as the story of individual geniuses, Michelangelo, Newton, Shakespeare. But Green argues this is a misguided way of seeing things. Even the greatest genius accomplishes very little alone. Progress and creation are almost always collaborative. Life, he suggests, is like the world's largest ball of paint. He writes, you carefully choose your colors, and then you add your layer as best you can. In time, it gets painted over. And eventually, maybe nobody knows about it except for you. But that doesn't mean your layer of paint is irrelevant or a failure. You have permanently, if slightly, changed the larger sphere. This, for him, is what art is. This is what life is. It's not about forging some immortal masterpiece. It's about picking a color, adding your layer, and participating in the strange, beautiful, collective project of being human. Knowing your layer will soon be painted over, and painting anyway. He gives the world's largest ball of paint 4 stars. Perhaps the most powerful and haunting essay in the collection is the final one, a review of a photograph titled 3 Farmers on Their Way to a Dance. The photograph was taken in 1914 by the German photographer August Sander. It shows 3 young men in their best suits, holding canes, with hats cocked. They're standing on a muddy country path, looking over their shoulders at the camera, as if they've only paused for a moment on their way to something wonderful. Their feet are in the mud, but their heads are in the sky. For years, John Green was obsessed with this photograph. For him, it was a picture about knowing and not knowing. You know you're on your way to a dance, but you don't know you're on your way to a war. The photograph was taken shortly before the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the event that would trigger World War I. The same industrialization that made their cheap suits possible would soon mass-produce weapons of unimaginable destruction. The photograph is a reminder that we, too, stand on the precipice of a future we cannot see. History is, as one writer put it, the relentless unforeseen. But then Green digs deeper. He learns the real story behind the photograph. The three young men were not, in fact, farmers. Two of them were iron ore miners, and one was an office worker at the mine. The iron from that mine would be used to build weapons for the coming war. He learns their names: Otto Krieger, August Klein, and Ewald Klein. And he learns what happened to them. Soon after the photograph was taken, all three were called to serve in the German army. August Klein, the handsome, sleepy-eyed young man in the middle of the photograph, was killed in action in March of 1915, less than a year after the picture was taken. He was 22 years old. The other two, Otto and Ewald, were both wounded but survived the war. Suddenly, the photograph is no longer just a symbol. It's a historical document, a portrait of three real lives, cut short or forever changed by forces beyond their control. It is a testament to the fact that history is not an abstract force, it is something that happens to individual people. It happens to us. The picture is static, but it keeps changing as we, the viewers, change. As Green writes, we do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. Looking at that picture from our present, we can't help but see the tragedy that awaits them. But in their faces, we also see the hope, the confidence, the sheer joy of being young and on your way to a dance with your best friends. The photograph holds both things at once: the beautiful, fleeting present, and the terrible, unforeseen future. It is a perfect encapsulation of the Anthropocene itself, a world full of promise and peril, where our feet are in the mud, but our heads are in the sky. He gives three farmers on their way to a dance 4.5 stars. So how do we live in such a world? A world of such overwhelming complexity, such breathtaking beauty, and such profound pain? In the end, John Green doesn't offer easy answers. Instead, he offers a practice, the practice of attention. The practice of bearing witness. The practice of finding the wonder that is all around us, if only we take the time to look. In his review of sunsets, after wrestling with how cliché and sentimental they are, he finally surrenders to their beauty. He writes, "This whole thing you've been doing where nothing gets 5 stars because nothing is perfect, that's bullshit. So much is perfect." Starting with this, he gives sunsets 5 stars. To fall in love with the world, he concludes, isn't to ignore or overlook suffering. It is to look up at the night sky and feel your mind swim before the beauty and the distance of the stars. It is to hold your children while they cry. We all know how loving ends. But he wants to fall in love with the world anyway, to let it crack him open. To feel what there is to feel while he is here. This book is his attempt to do just that. It is an invitation for us to do the same. Commentary. So, what do we take away from this journey through the Anthropocene Reviewed? I think the most powerful lesson is hidden in the very structure of the book. The 5-star scale seems like a gimmick at first, a silly way to judge the world. We live in an age of ratings, where everything from a public restroom to the medication we take is rated on a 5-star scale. It feels like a shallow, data-driven way of seeing the world. But in John Green's hands, it becomes something more. It becomes an act of attention. To review something, you have to truly look at it. You have to consider its history, its context, its impact on you and the world. The rating itself is almost irrelevant. What matters is the act of looking closely, of paying attention. And that, I believe, is the central challenge he's offering us. In a world that is constantly screaming for our attention, a world of endless distraction and overwhelming information, the most radical thing we can do is to choose what we pay attention to, and to do so with care and curiosity. This book teaches us that there are no boring subjects, only inattentive minds. A can of soda, a movie from the 1950s, a common weed in your lawn, all of these contain deep, complex, and fascinating stories if we are willing to look for them. They connect us to history, to our communities, and to ourselves. And this practice of attention is ultimately an act of hope. It's easy to despair. When you look at the big picture, climate change, injustice, the sheer scale of human suffering, it's easy to feel like nothing matters, to play that game of what's even the point. But Green shows us a way out of that despair, not by ignoring the problems, but by focusing on the small, tangible, and beautiful things that make life worth living. A sycamore tree. A well-crafted song. A hot dog eaten with friends on a cold day. Hope, in this book, is not a feeling. It's a practice. It's the choice to add your layer to the ball of paint, even though you know it will be painted over. It's the choice to sing with a crowd of strangers, believing that even in sorrow, you are not alone. It's the choice to be pleasant instead of smart. So, how can you apply these lessons to your own life? Starting today, here are a few simple ideas. First, for the next week, try to pay attention to what you pay attention to. Pick one small, ordinary thing in your life that you interact with every day. Maybe it's your favorite pair of sneakers, the brand of coffee you drink, or the route you take to school. And just get curious about it. Where did it come from? Who made it? What's its story? You might be surprised by what you find. Second, add your layer of paint. Do one small, creative thing this week, not for an audience or for a grade, but just for yourself. Write a poem you'll never show anyone. Doodle in the margins of your notebook. Help a friend with a project. Contribute something to the world, however small, knowing that your contribution matters simply because you made it. You are changing the sphere. And finally, find a third thing. The book talks about how relationships are strengthened when two people can look together at a third thing, a piece of art, a book, a sunset. Find a third thing to share with someone you care about. Watch a movie together and really talk about it. Read the same book. Go for a walk and pay attention to the world around you, together. Practice the art of double attention. That was a summary of the Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. We've explored the landscapes of this incredible book today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a photograph of a sunset. It can show you the colors and the shape, but it can't make you feel the warmth of the last light on your skin. The real magic of this book is in the way John Green writes, in the quiet, personal moments where his words connect with your own experience. This summary is a map, but the treasure is in reading the book itself. If anything we've talked about today has sparked your curiosity or touched your heart, I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the beautiful, terrifying, and wondrous world we all share. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know that these deep dives matter, and it ensures you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and keep paying attention together.